everyone. Welcome to our season finale of Career Uninterrupted Season 2. I'm your host, Lochan Narayanan, founder and CEO of Off Experiences. This particular season of Career Uninterrupted was brought to you by Off Experiences and our production partner, Done For You podcast. Today, I'm joined by Roshni Baronia, founder of Done For You podcast. She has been an integral part of conceptualizing and bringing this entire season to life. So I'm really excited to do the season finale with her and explore the entire season with her on what the season was, how it was, and bring to you some interesting moments that both of us cherished as we brought this to life. So thank you, Roshni, for doing this. And thank you for being a part of this entire journey and helping us really put this idea and bring this to life. Um, so when I remember when we were talking about how we are going to think about season two, and we were also making a shift from
Yeah.
just audio to audio plus video, and we were doing all of this, and we were going back and thinking, what is it that we want to explore in this season while we talk about uninterrupted careers? We came to pick up one particular transition phase for women, which ends up being motherhood and parenting. And therefore, we decided to do the season as a theme of women, career, and parenting. I want to know how was it for you?
Yeah.
In when we did this entire season, when we explored these different angles and different perspectives of conversations. How was this entire journey for you?
Yeah. Thank you, Lochan, for actually making us, the entire team of Done For You podcast, and me a part of this conversation. Because being a woman, of course, I have shared experiences, shared journey that all women have throughout their careers, be it entering into career or entering into motherhood. And those stories and experiences is something we share all along. And hence, being part of such a conversation was personally very gratifying and fulfilling to me. So, thanks for doing this with us, with our team. And as a production partner, I would firstly say that I am really, really proud of the kind of season we've put together, because it is so specific, so nuanced that, of
Right.
course, there is a lot of conversation around women, careers, parenting out there, but the kind of conversations from male allies to adoptive parents to mothers just thinking about okay, what is it like to hold the baby for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even new people who recently got married, who are just thinking about motherhood. Now these
Yeah.
are things that which are hardly talked about. And as a person myself, I have crossed these milestones or stages in life when I
Yeah.
was at the crossroads of making very difficult decisions, and conversations like these help us make those decisions in life. So so yes, as a production partner, it was gratifying to do these conversations, facilitated these conversations. And performance wise, success wise, I'm very happy to share that the podcast recently stood at the 13th position all over India in Apple Podcast on 29
Yay!
July. So yeah, that's also something which makes us very, very happy, that all the efforts that we are putting in, both in terms of production, content curation, you and your team at Off Experiences, just putting together the guests and having these conversations, is all efforts being recognized and validated. So yeah, that's what it is for me.
I know when we were thinking about this, and I think one of the core themes that we kept, and I know you and I have discussed this so many times, gone back and forth as well, to say that we want to bring real conversations. We want to create a space and an ecosystem, naturalize, normalize a lot of these conversations, and allow people a space where they say, yeah, even I feel so, but I'm not even sure if I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So touching on anticipating with mothers
Yeah.
or people who were thinking about it was actually very very sensitive too, because they were a little. We always felt that they would be reluctant to, explore this
Yes.
as a space and as a piece. So I'm really glad we could put different perspectives together, and we've got some really good feedback from
Yes.
people who have just enjoyed these conversations, because you don't hear about it as often.
True.
Whether it's from fathers and anticipating mothers or women, and adoptive parents, and even talking about relationships
Hmm.
dynamics when parent when someone becomes a
Oh,
parent, like how
yes.
that changes um, uh, how you look at work, how you look at your own relationships at home yourself. So all of those were very interesting pieces that came out. Of course, a lot of the engagement efforts and where we stand, and I know you know were in like top 20 a couple of times
Yeah,
through this
yeah, we've been
season
there.
on different
Yes.
different points of time. So I'm all thanks to the team that has put in the effort to bring this. So I do want to ask you, I have some favorites, but I do want to ask you, what were some maybe episodes or some things that stood out for you?
Hmm.
Uh, we've done quite a few. We've done almost about 20 episodes. So
Yes.
what were some of the ones that like stood out, some
Yes.
conversations? Um,
Yeah, actually, each episode has its own flavor. And interestingly, just to share a personal anecdote, there was this family gathering and we was all sitting together, and there was this conversation again about women at work and everything, and someone just very casually said that, oh, women have it easy because they close their work hours at 6 and they have to go, and in afternoon they have to go to pick to the kid and all of these things, and this coming from a very senior partner in a consulting firm. And at that point of
mm,
time, I was able to give him statistics, data, stories, all because I was listening to the conversations that I was
mm,
uh, being a part of at Career Uninterrupted. And at that point, I felt that it is so important to have these conversations or even podcasts around, because it makes you more aware about
mm,
the topics, the issues at hand. And when just loose conversations like this happen in society or anywhere
mm,
around you, you have valid information to come back with. So yeah,
mm,
each conversation is very, very special, but three that stood out for me
mm,
were the first episode with Sushant Kalra, where
mm,
he called out at moms for taking a back seat on their careers and
yeah,
being a bad role model for the daughters. So
right.
he's like, if you don't go after your dreams, you are setting a bad example for your daughters. How will they go after
Mm,
their dreams, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was a very, very like important wake up call that
Mm,
he brought out. And coming from a male ally, that all the more made it
mm,
a highlight point for me.
mm,
The second was the episode with Deep Shikha. Now,
mm,
she again is a powerhouse who does not
mm,
mince with her words. She calls
yeah,
spade a spade.
yeah.
And she was very practical in saying, like, I do not understand this entire debacle about work life balance. What is work life
I
balance?
remember.
I mean,
I
why are we
remember
even
that one.
chasing balance? It is like a priority every day, it is a choice you
Correct.
make every day. You falter, you fail, but you get up again every day. And
Yeah.
be it at work, be it as a mother, you make those choices every day. She also underlined the importance of sponsors and male allies
Mm,
at work, support
mm,
systems at home, and these are very, very practical issues. And
mm,
coming from a person who is so qualified, who has been in the corporate, who is now an entrepreneur, she was
yeah.
able to bring out both the spectrums.
Correct.
So that conversation was also very real and raw, and she was
Mm.
like, if you better get your act straight kind of a thing. so
Correct.
so
Yeah.
women sometimes
Yeah.
need to hear that, right?
Yeah.
And lastly, the conversation, and that was episode 8, I guess. Deep Shikha's
Hmm.
episode was
Yeah.
episode 8. And lastly, the conversation between Apurv and Ravi. Now, these
Hmm.
again were fathers who are bringing out their perspective. So,
Hmm.
while we are making all the shout around how mothers need to be supported,
Yeah.
poor dads are having their own challenges, and
Correct.
maybe we are not like recognizing them. And
Hmm.
the the very valid point that Apoorv and Ravi made, that it's as easy for a male also to go for a PTM, to say to to the colleagues that okay, it's 6 p.m. and I also need to be with my family. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
only the woman who needs to be with the family, I also need to be there. And like fathers playing an active role in play dates for the kids, WhatsApp conversations and groups. So those were also a very new perspective, which probably in my motherhood journey, I never saw my husband playing those roles. But it was
Hmm.
so encouraging to see that fathers
Hmm.
today are wanting, like they're willing to play that active role.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
a very good conversation again, something which brings a shift in the mindset. So, and that was, I think, episode 14. So
Yeah.
these really stood out for me.
So I have to go back to the first
Mm-hmm.
episode, first two episodes with
Yeah.
Sushant, and I think specifically he spoke about the fact that um, you know women being, by staying at home, you're being bad role
Yeah.
models. And I heard in one of our roundtable events recently, I heard a very senior woman leader speaking about the same thing. She said, when 5 year olds, she said, my kid came and asked me saying, why do you go to office?
Mm.
When so and so's, my friend's mother doesn't go to office. And she says that women are, and he said something to the effect that women, mothers don't go to office, only fathers go to office, or
Okay.
something to that effect. And she said the fact that when these 5 or 6 year olds get together and they talk to each other, they realize that the fathers are going to office and the mothers are staying at home
Mm.
for whatever reason, and it instills the same behavior in the boy and in the girl.
True.
So a 5 year old is drawing that impression that growing up, this is what it is. I'm a boy, I will become a father and I will go to office. And I'm a girl, I will become a mother and I will stay at home. So without saying it, while, she said, while we may be trying to raise them equally and all of that, we're just creating those impressions. And it immediately stood, I said, that's exactly what Sushant was talking
Yeah.
about, and it's not far out. It's not when the kids are 25 years old. It's happening when the kids are 5 years old, and they're observing it and
Mm.
seeing it.
They are imbibing it.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
they are imbibing
Yeah.
it, and that's what they're going to live
True.
out, and that's a belief system that will get formed in them by the
True.
time they're
True.
teenagers.
True.
um, for me, the second piece that stood out was with Dr. Sindhu and Satyan, where they specifically talked about the change in the relationship of the parents when
Mm.
they, a couple when they
Couple.
become parents, um, how it impacts their relationship, how it impacts their intimacy, how it impacts their, how they treat each other, because now they have a new dynamic to also cater to. They're no longer just husband and wife, or a couple. Now they have a third dimension of a child to be brought in. And how it's important at that point for a lot of strong and active communication to happen between partners. Otherwise that can really put a lot of stress on the marriage, and have repercussions and impact for it. And that's an angle that we don't hear often.
True.
We always say parenting is difficult, but parenting is difficult also because at that time there is a complete change of relationship that's happening everywhere. And while trying to be a good parent, you're also rediscovering each other as partners, and kind of uh, living that as well. And definitely, I think, when I was talking to Apoor and Ravi, and it was again very interesting because I was sharing their experience in a recent session that
Yeah.
I was doing for a company with the HR team. I was talking to them, and three, four of them raised and said, "Yeah, our husbands complain of the same thing." So one of them said, "My husband dropped me and my daughter to a birthday party, went and sat at a chai tapri for 2 hours and picked us up because he didn't know what to do, in that party because he's not welcome."
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
but he's not welcome. He wants to be there, he wants to do this, but he's not supported to do this. In fact, another person friend of mine was sharing that she shared this experience, this episode, with a male friend of hers who felt that his wife was not comfortable with him taking the lead role in raising the child.
Oh, wow.
And so she said, "Look, this is what, listen to this episode." And she came back and told me, she said, "He confided in me and shared this." So I know I'm sharing anecdotal pieces, but it just made us feel that, okay, there's small ripples.
Yes.
It's kind of going out
Yes.
somewhere, people are talking about it, and that kind of difference that brings out. And of course, the episode with the two adoptive single adoptive mothers, I think was a beautiful conversation to break a lot of stereotypes, myths. I didn't know. I would like to believe I'm
Hmm.
fairly aware, but I think those also brought out, and not just the emotional journey, but also the process of
Yes.
adoption. What is it like? Who should you go to? What should you be prepared with, and so on, and how they set expectations back at work so that it can happen. And I remember this piece about how they really leaned on their managers, and used their managers were extremely supportive, because adoption can happen while you're on the wait list. You can suddenly get a news saying there is a child available,
Yes.
and please confirm or something. So they have a confirmation period. So unlike a biological parent where you have 9
9
months
months to prepare.
to
Yeah.
prepare, in this case it can happen suddenly. So how their organizations were managers were very supportive in enabling them to do this. I think that was also very beautiful to talk about, saying there are these smaller, there are these spaces where people are being supportive, they are enabling, and really making a difference.
Making.
So
Yes.
that's something we are, I'm fairly
Yeah.
like happy about how these particular
Yeah.
episodes and this particular season
Yeah.
turned out to be
But on the
for
other
us.
hand, Lochan, were there any points where you thought that this conversation will go this particular way? Because you've been into this space for so
Yeah,
long, right? You've been
yeah,
working with organizations, helping them bring women back
yeah.
to work, helping them transition into work, and but any surprises during the conversation? Anything which like stood out for you? Okay, this is something which I not thought about.
Yeah, so I'll come back to two things. I think the I will bring out Deepshika's episode where she said, I like the fact that she said, "I am a 24/7 mother,
Hmm.
and I'm a 24/7 professional. It's my identity doesn't change, but my priority for that day changes. So if there is something required at work at 11 p.m. at night, and it's critical, I will focus on that.
Right.
And if my child needs me at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, which is officially work hours, I will prioritize that. So that was a very interesting and a very new perspective to work life integration and balance. And that I really wasn't expecting, because I thought it'll I'll kind of hear the typical good answers there. But I thought that
True.
was a very, very
Yeah.
real thing, saying you don't stop being
Yeah.
a
Your
person.
identity doesn't change. Yes.
Your
True.
identity doesn't change. You don't stop being a mother, you don't stop being an entrepreneur. And if you embrace the fact that you are these two identities, and you bring one into the other and the other into this, is when you will be able to be wholesome in that sense. That was something I really liked, because then you're not in conflict with what identity should I bring where.
Yes.
So that was definitely one conversation. The second, I would definitely want to talk about, again, coming back to what Apurva and Ravi's session was on. Um, I was expecting a little more, how do we support mothers, our wives conversation. And I was
Okay.
expecting a little more passive view. But when I really heard them, and they simply said, listen, if you want to be a parent, an involved parent, you can be an involved parent, right? You have to fight a little bit. They were also talking about the systemic bias against them, which was very interesting, because I was expecting them to bring out only the systemic bias against women, and
True.
somewhere thinking that they will say, okay, we have it easy. But they did say that, look, we have it easier, but if I'm choosing to be an involved parent, I do have to step up and say it, and show up at different places, ensure that my organization knows about it, and supports it, and they were very vocal about saying that thing, nothing should stop you.
Mm, true.
And how do you kind of fight that little bit of systemic bias that happens against them. So these were two, like, completely different lenses that I got, and I said, okay, there is this angle also, there is this perspective also, to this
Interesting.
entire piece and this entire conversation. So yeah, I loved that for sure.
Interesting. So, what what did you feel, and how do you feel now that the season is coming to a finale and it's ending? So, as a host, what were your feelings throughout the conversations throughout the season? How do you feel now?
I think I loved the conversations. I knew I came out of every single conversation feeling like I've learned something today. I was very energized. I would be like, literally that Duracell bunny, which is running. So
Yes.
I would do 1.5 hour, 2 hour conversations, but when I would be out, I earlier would have expected to feel a little drained, because you spend that kind of time. But I would come out feeling super energized,
Wow.
bouncing here and there. Um, so that's definitely one piece. Interesting perspectives, nuances. We were very careful about the kind of guests we wanted on the show. We wanted people to be real. We wanted people to talk about the nuance and not beat around the bush, and not brush things under the carpet and say only the goody things, because everyone has heard it. So that way, we were very glad that we could get those kind of guests, we could get those kind of conversations as well. There were a few perspectives that we realized that we weren't able, as the season progressed, we realized there are a few more perspectives that we could cover. And one was, of course, from an organizational
Mm,
perspective. So how are they viewing women careers and parenting, and what is that they look at?
right.
Also, there was a lot of conversation around the physical medical aspect of the entire motherhood journey. So, one of our new moms guests had spoken about infertility, and how that is a very, and she spoke about it saying, in a very different space, she spoke about it. But she said, look, I um, went through infertility treatment, and as a result, I was kind of on the becoming a mother, or going back to my company multiple times, because I had to, go in for the treatment. I would not feel well. I had to kind of stay home for a few days, etc. So she said, so I was pregnant many times before I actually became
Oh,
pregnant. And that was a very hard hitting statement,
yes.
to hear. And post that, I also started reading up on, what fertility treatments are like. And that's one angle, that that's one perspective I would love to talk, explore more about, and how it impacts women, their careers, etc. So um, I do know a few close friends who went through this, and it's very easy for us to walk through and say, "Are she had a kid. It was an IVF treatment," as if it was just like a walk in the park, and she brought a candy and brought back home, right? Even women don't know what it means and what that journey is like.
True.
So I think these were two perspectives that I felt we would like to bring in definitely
So
as
are
we
they coming forth in next season? What's in
oh,
store for the
absolutely.
podcast next? What are the new initiatives you are working at off experiences? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So, absolutely. In fact, our next season will talk about women career and transition. So, not just parenting, because we realize that there are multiple transition points for women when their careers get interrupted. In fact, even the whole process of going through fertility treatment is one such thing. I post this, I did hear a lot of women come and say that I took a break to get pregnant, and that's a very difficult conversation to have, right? To not after I had a child, but to kind of go through that. So that marriage, relocation, um, caregiving, as well as the typical transitioning to leadership, the challenges that women face when they reach a certain position, the challenge they face in kind of moving up. So these are certain areas that we are going to cover in the next season for sure, and of course we'll be working together in conceptualizing that and putting it together. I
Of
want the
course.
whole Roshni magic on it.
Definitely.
Give you your magic
Magic
wand
wand.
to do this. There are two other pieces that we are bringing out, and we are very, very excited about it. So last year we had launched an entire series called the 100 Career Transition Stories. So we brought out mid-career transitions of 100 people. We brought it to a close in March this year. uh, Amazing stories we saw of different individuals, people starting their careers at mid 50s, or leaving an investment banking job to become a yoga teacher, or taking multiple career breaks because the person wanted to be a part of the film industry and be a script
Wow.
writer, and how that journey panned out. So amazing stories. So we are bringing that book out,
Okay.
bringing it out as a book
Super, super.
this year. It is slated to get released in first week of December. Very, we want it to be a festive gifting thing
Yes.
to encourage others. So that's what is in
Wonderful.
store. Very excited. It'll also talk about our the career archetypes that we've identified with these stories, the 10 different archetypes. Are you a ruler? Are you a sage? How are you looking at
Yeah,
your career?
that's, I think, a proprietary thing that you guys have created.
Absolutely, and
I
we're
am so
very
excited about
excited
it.
about it
Yeah.
to bring that to the fore. The second, and this came up from a lot of our women development programs that we've been running. Um, there are a lot of typical questions that we get in these sessions, especially when we talk to younger professionals, so who are moving from early to mid career transition space. So we have collated these questions, and we're going to start a series called the Leaders Log, which is where we're actually going to have women leaders answer these questions. Very speed mentoring approach.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
2 minutes, specific questions answered. Um, and there are going to be 52 of these, one a week for the rest of, starting on 5th of September. So we are going to launch then.
Wow.
And that's something that we are really, really looking forward to. So
Wow.
these are two pieces. Of course, we'll start work for season
Yeah.
3, and we've already started putting that together.
Yeah,
So
sounds
looking forward to that.
incredible. Sounds awesome. Like, I'm really looking forward to the leader's log and the launch of the book, because um, these come from the experiences and insights that you've had working with so many organizations, people, women especially. And that's why
Yeah.
you are able to curate things and initiatives and campaigns that help solve their problems. So I'm
Yeah.
really wishing well for the success of these two launches and initiatives of off experiences, and of course looking forward to next conversations on Career Uninterrupted. And closing remarks for your own podcast. Finale remarks.
Finale remarks. Okay. Um, so to all the listeners, first and foremost, thank you so much for staying with us and encouraging us. Um, we would like to believe a lot of these conversations have touched you. We have heard them anecdotally, but please do show your love on all the platforms wherever you get your podcasts. So please do that. It'll really help us. We did hit some, 30,000 downloads and 30 hours of listening, and we'd love to get some more of those. That love. Definitely stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel of Career Uninterrupted, do so that you get to know about the next episode that's coming out, as well as the next season that comes out. So stay tuned to this, and just anything and everything you feel we can bring in, please do share with us so that we can help you, enable you to ensure that your career remains uninterrupted. So that's something to all the listeners out there. And thank you once again for supporting us.
Thank you.